Greetings, subscribers. Welcome, new subscribers. Thank you, everyone, for liking our videos, sharing them, resonating with our message. My name is Reverend Penelope. I run the Chemistry Channel and our Spiritual Wellness Store. Please go support us, check out our website, and we have lots of products and services, quality products and services that we provide to our clients and our customers, so our subscribers. Thank you so much. Today, I wanted to talk about types of ancestors. I don't hear a lot of people talk about that. I hear people talk about, hey, honor your ancestors. And then you're just like, whoa, what is to that? How does that work? A lot of us. And I think it does us some good to stop and pause about erecting an altar, especially if we come from dysfunctional family. Okay, if you come from dysfunctional family, your family, is not very well, and you want to be particular about the ancestors that you interface with. We want to make sure that we're interfacing with healthy ancestors. And what better way to do that is to uh, look at our options of how we want to interface with ancestors, who we want to interface with, because you can do that. You can do that. You can absolutely do that when it comes to ancestral veneration. Okay? You can absolutely do that. So I'm gonna go over some notes through some books I have here. And the books that we're going to be going through today is Ancestral Medicine, Badass Ancestors, and Ancestral Magic. So I'm going to be using some notes from these books to provide you some options for working with ancestors and types of ancestors that you can work with. And again, I'm not hearing this talked about in this community. And I can remember when I first started interfacing with my ancestors and I had questions. And I asked this guy that was doing ancestral work, I said, well, what if your family is dysfunctional? And he never did respond. He had no response when I asked him that. So a lot of these people that are promoting ancestral veneration, they are not promoting a way where you can do it in a healthy way that's going to strengthen you, empower you, where you can see some impactful changes in your life. So that's important. Not all of us have good ancestors, and we want to be interfacing and honoring good ancestors. And we want to be providing healing for the ancestors who need it as well. So I'm going to be talking about that today. So I'm talking about ancestors. What ancestors? What are ancestors? What ancestors do we want to interface with? Give me just a moment. I should have had my notes already open. I'm going to them. Here we go. Oh, that's for shrines. Oh, there we go. Here we go. We're going to dive in here. And here is my notes on family ancestors. Gonna jump into family ancestors, and then we'll move on because I have notes kind of in this book here, and this book is Ancestral Medicine, and I have like little notes in this book. So when you think of family, maybe you think of your birth parents, particularly if they are the ones who raised you from childhood. For adoptees, individuals who have never met their birth parents, those from blended chosen families, the subject of family ancestors can be complicated. Perhaps the narrowest lens through which to think about ancestors is DNA and blood relations. So if you're just thinking about just blood relations, that you are limiting your power, your strength, and your support if you're just thinking about blood relations. Many physical features and health predispositions derive directly from blood ancestors, and their impact can be life altering. The ancestors can bestow gifts such as longevity, fertility, and even temperament, just as they can pass along vulnerabilities to physical. and mental illness. Individuals who are adopted are orphaned and estranged from their blood relatives may not know their genetic predisposition. They also lack access to their stories of their biological ancestors. Nevertheless, those with no living connection to the blood family can engage with the spirits of their beloved dead and blood ancestors through practice of honoring and ritual. Okay. In addition to direct lineage, family ancestors can include children, siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins, and anyone linked through the same blood lineages. Family can also be chosen family, even if we are not always the one making the choices. In this sense, genetically unrelated individuals become blood relations often through formal adoption rituals. Okay, so that includes adoptees as well. So now I have just broadened that scope for you. I've just broadened that scope for you. Now we're going to talk about the remembered dead. No matter whom we consider family, it's our memory of those people that determines the reach of the remembered ancestor. The recent or remembered dead includes deceased parents, grandparents, children, siblings, and their kin who knew us during their lives here on earth. They may also include earlier generations of ancestors remembered through family lore or genealogy research. Think of these ancestors as those remembered by name, face, and deeds. Practitioners of ancestors' reverence sometimes encourage knowing the names of ancestors back to 7 generations. If this is taken to the heart, even generations along every bloodline calls for memorizing names of 254 ancestors. Most people who I meet know the names of their grandparents and maybe 1 or 2 great grandparents. And this is lack of knowledge is understandable as family research is not faint of the heart, especially for us who was impacted by transgenerational trauma. So you can't go back that far, and a lot of us are, we're starting to do the ancestry work and tie ourselves not just back to Africa, but to America as well. So we're starting to tie ourselves back. Those with recent disruptions in ancestral knowledge, adoption, war, dislocation, conception through violence, sudden migration, often have even more limited knowledge of family history. Okay? If you know the names of your ancestors, even long just one lineage to 7 generations, that's a blessing. Remember that any effort to understand family history, research, or genealogy can help awaken your relationship with ancestors, both known and unknown. So, doing the historical research, looking at these activists, looking at these revolutionaries, looking at these ancestors who lived and tried to teach us, these are teaching us too. What obstacles can come up when relating to recent ancestors? First, you may simply have little to no information about them. Second, you might have negative experience and perceptions of family members that hinder your enthusiasm for engaging with the family line. Third, there may be problems that source from ancestral spirits themselves. Let's look at these 3 challenges. Although you may feel discouraged because you have limited information about your recent ancestors, you can still connect directly with them in spirit. Genetic ancestors are no far from you than blood and bones. In fact, those with no experience of biological family are less likely to project memories of the deceased onto the present relationships with the ancestors. To adoptees, those in similar circumstances, I suggest trusting your intuition and ability when interacting with both blood and your adoptive ancestors. Another common question I hear goes something like this: if my living family or recent ancestors are abusive, unloving, dysfunctional, absent, or otherwise uninspiring, why in the world would I want to connect with them? One reason is to make sure that they're not already connecting with you in a unhealthy, unhelpful way. Until the deceased join the ranks of the loving ancestors, they can weigh on the living relatives' connections with each other and with the older ancestors. Okay, conversely, their successful transition may free up old blockages and support personal and family healing. But at no point does relating with your ancestors call for opening yourself up to harmful or abusive energies from your family, living, or the deceased. Okay, so you don't have to. You can set up boundaries with them. Okay, you get a chance to choose who you want to work with. Unfortunately, not all those who have died have fully settled into the status of supportive family ancestors. Without proper precautions relating to the troubled dead or not yet ancestors can cause disruption and disequilibrium for the living. So if you don't want to honor them like that because they can literally haunt you. They can literally disrupt your life. That's why the healing and all that stuff is very necessary. If you know this stuff is going on, you absolutely need to be healing and repairing your DNA. Unless you feel confident that any given family member is well in spirit, consider first relating instead with the older ancestral guides and initiating the lineage repair process. Okay, and I have that on my YouTube channel, some ancestral guides and angels helping you do the ancestral healing. So go there and check that out on the YouTube channel there. Some signs that this process of engagement is working include more conscious relationships with the living family members, a greater connection to lineage and ancestral support, and the elevation of spirits of the remembered dead. Feeling the support of loving ancestors can help you update old perceptions, establish healthy boundaries, forgive past harms, and show up in a more conscious ways with your living family. And if you have no contact with or knowledge of your biological family, or you are last of your lineage, you can still call upon the assistance of loving ancestors and strengthen this relationship over time. Loving and forgiving our recent blood ancestors also helps them arrive at peace and in turn better support us from their world. So I say this healing is a monumentum. You hear what I'm saying? It is imperative that you do it. Now that you're understanding ancestors' work and taking a healing approach to it, you can be more empowered when you are working with your ancestors, beloved, especially women of color. Working with those ancient ancestors is going to provide you with so much knowledge and wisdom. And you get to connect with Mother Earth in a very special way because she is your oldest ancestor. You get to get some powerful downloads, especially when you start finding out more about your history and about who you are. You become more empowered, more enlightened. So let's talk about the older ancestors and the collective dead. Ideally, you would feel loved and supported by older ancestors. However, accessing their support can call for healing and repair. I'll read that again. Accessing their support can call for healing and repair. Let me read it again. Accessing their support can call for healing and repair with living family and with the recent ancestors. If you feel connection with older lineage ancestors whose names are now forgotten, how far back in time does this reach? That's important because, like I said, when you go back to the ancestors of the land, you're reaching back in far time with the shamans and the agriculturists and the real root workers and the people that had this magical symbiotic relationship with Mother Earth and all the elements around them. And you get a chance to witness that once you connect with them. Even practitioners of ancestor reference It's like I said, this is a practitioner. It is a shaman. And I like the way he puts this, as this is a practitioner. That is really what this is about, is going back home. Okay, even practitioners of ancestor reference seem to relate mostly to ancestors from the past 2,000 to 3,000 years. Consider the four categories of generalized starting points for distinguishing the ancestors whose names are forgotten. You have the ancient ancestors that dates back to 200 to 10,000 years. I like working with these ancestors. There is a lot of knowledge and power, primordial power that comes from these ancestors. They are very intentional, very enlightened. And I'm going to get into that a little bit later when we break down more types of ancestors that you can work with. Like I said, you have options. We want to interface with these ancestors. You can do that by going back to the land. Like I said, I go down to the mounds because those mounds, as old as is what he's saying. And I have talked to those ancestors and listened to the story of the land, the ancestors of the land. So you want to connect with them. Then he goes to the first agricultures and the urban folk, 10,000 years to 2,000 years. I don't like to go beyond the 6,000 year mark, between 6,000 and 10,000, because this is before the patriarch set up and the trauma start entering the human consciousness. All this trauma started. So, but he says the plant folks, these are the agricultures and the plant people. And you're gonna find out a lot about, again, when you go back to the land and you start learning about plants, all that stuff, they're gonna give you all that stuff. You're gonna learn about your environment and how these elements work with you. You're gonna learn about that. And I'm gonna get in that a little bit more. And then we're talking about the recent ancestors, the earlier ancestors, 2,000 to 500 years. I don't want to really work with those ancestors unless they were activists, revolutionaries, healers, or sometime in our history, especially when it comes to uh, African American, so-called African American, original American Indian history. I want to be interfacing with those who were doing the healing, who was revolutionary activists, and that was bringing awareness to the culture. Those are the ancestors, and that could be like Malcolm X. That can be like Nina Simone. That can be like Marie Laveau. Maybe like Billie Holiday, Martin Luther King. Those type of historical figures like that. Those are the people that within that time frame, I would rather work with. That's just my preference, because there was so much trauma in that bloodline. I want to be very intentional and particular about the ancestors I work with within that time frame. Let me go on here. And I think this was important as well when he talks about ancestors of the past 2,000 years. When do you when do your older ancestors first emerge in your awareness of history as distinct peoples? When do they incarnate? When you start doing history, and that's really going to open up your imagination to connect with the ancestors who were revolutionaries and who were telling our story. You know, the most psychologically influential of the forgotten dead are often those just beyond the reach of the remembered names. You might consider these ancestors as forgotten by name but known to history. Their impact reverberates through shared culture, habits, historical, national identity, level, epigenetic influence. That's why I said when you look at Nina Simone, you look at Malcolm X, you look at these are a sense of freedom, revolutionary acts of humanity to heal. So you want to look at those people. They can be very influential and helpful. Insofar as the legacy of colonialism over the past 5 centuries has been challenging, for much of the world. The period of trouble continues to reverberate and form many people's experience their ancestors in the present. But even if your people have experienced acute hardships over the past few centuries, be sure also to remember those who lived before these troubles and to not allow hardships to fully define your perception of your ancestors. Each of your bloodlines includes thousands of years of human history with plenty of time spent as oppressor, oppressed, and every other configuration. Okay, so you want to go back and you want to remember those ancestors. Now we're going to talk about some more ancestors. I'm going to go through the badass ancestors, and she's going to break a little bit down about what I talked about in ancestral medicine, because I did a lot of research on working with ancestors because that was my big thing. I was trying to clean up our ancestral line, and I was trying to find books that deal when the ancestors are stuck in this karmic loop or there is some type of issues that's going on with your ancestors. And that book, Ancestral Medicine, really cleared up and confirmed a lot of the things that I was already doing, clearing up on my ancestral line and interfacing with the older ancestors. So let me go to Badass Ancestors, since I have this book in my hand here. We're going to talk about here. I want to talk about transgenerational trauma healing here because she has a title in here called transgenerational trauma healing. This, like this is I see this in most ancestral books. The trauma healing is going to be in most ancestral books, and they calling it transgenerational trauma healing, aka shadow work. Because if you get my book, Heal Thyself, we're going to break down that family tree. We're going to break down that family line. You're going to find out what frequency, behaviors, and traits that were passed on to you so you can start raising your frequency and doing that transgenerational healing work in yourself. That's what this is all about, you guys. That's what this is all about. So you have people telling you to honor the ancestors or whatever. This is the real work right here, doing the healing, the healing work. I talked about this on my TikTok channel too. This is what's going on. We're trying to heal through patriarchy, heal through racism, all this transgenerational trauma that a lot of us are acting out, that we are embodying, that codependency, all these negative behaviors, parasitic negative behaviors and traits. That's what we're working through now. There's a concept that trauma is passed down from one generation to the next, and that each subsequent generation, although further and further removed from the original cause of the pain, still suffers from it as much as their ancestors did. In the United States, we're really good at ancestral trauma. Forced immigration, religious oppression, unwanted displacement were widespread for a significant part of our history, and people are still experiencing its after effects today. Even immigrants who came to the U.S. voluntarily still left their family and friends and homelands if you came to the New World to settle. It was understood that you'd probably never again see those who were left behind. And all of these events led to the disconnect in which we lost many of our ancestral customs. African men or Aborigine men and women, children were violently uprooted from their homes, forced into the slave trade. Hundreds and thousands of Jews fled their home. So she's just going through here showing you how that transgenerational trauma gets in there, and she's recognizing that, and that all of us in some capacity has to do some healing work. So I just wanted to mention that. So let's go through here and let's see what she talks about. She talks about ancestors of the heart. And again, these are people that you've chosen to love and they've chosen to love you. Okay? That's what we consider as ancestors. So ancestors could be anyone you chosen to love. They chosen to love you, and they just have been, in short terms, your ride or die. They've been your your support system. Those are ancestors of the heart. They're near and dear to the heart. Then you have those spiritual ancestors, and this where it gets very wide in scope. Okay, once we recognize who we are in biology and DNA and our thoughts, we can start working with spiritual ancestors. Our spiritual kinfolk are the ones who have directly shaped our thoughts, beliefs, ideas to help frame a person we've become. They can be a priest, a pastor, who guided us through the times of spiritual crisis, a shamanic practitioner, an ascended master, or even a high priestess who first introduced you to your spiritual journey. Even prophets or holy figures such as Buddhas, Jesus, could be spiritual ancestors as long as they are people whose teachings have colored your spiritual belief system. So you have it there. Now you see how I said some of our deities was ancestors when you get to looking at some of the voodoo pantheon. You look at Erzeli Frida. You look at Papa Legba. You look at some of these. Some of these are, and again, this is ancestral spirituality. That's what voodoo mean, ancestral. Okay, so I thought I would mention that. We'll go to the archetypes in a minute because we also have archetypes too that are connected with our zodiac. Okay, that we embody. And you'll see them come up in your tarot reading as well, but I'm gonna leave that for last. So the other types of ancestors we have, you'll see, is we have the Gettys. You'll see that these are they're very vulgar, uh, rude. They don't have any filter. They use a lot of profanity, but they're very profound, very powerful healers, and very powerful protector of children. So the Gettys, and you'll see Baron Samedi, he represents the Gettys. So you'll see him representing the Gettys, and most of those colors are going to be like purple and black. They like offerings of hot peppers, extra hot sauce. They symbols are the skeleton key. I would say you want and crosses and phalluses and grave diggers and skulls. Uh, you want to be kind of experienced when you're dealing with these powerful spirits as well. You know, these spirits, they again, these are voodoo spirits, ancestral spirits as well, but you want to have some type of experience when you're dealing with the Gettys. And the Gettys live in the crossroads and the cemeteries. So you see a lot of practitioners there. Again, they'll go to those ancestors. That's why I say you have ancestors of the cemetery, ancestors of the dead. They'll go there and they will work some of the people, some of the spirits they have befriended there, and they will work with those ancestors. I have a book on that too, somewhere. I forgot where that book is, but you can work with those spirits in the cemetery as well. That's why you'll see some hoodoo practitioners that will go there at work because they have built relationships with the ancestor spirits in the cemetery. That's for another subject. That's for someone who, if you don't have any experience in that, I don't advise you do it. If your ancestors haven't led you to do that, don't do that. Okay. And then you have the ancestors according to Palau Mambe. I might be pronouncing this wrong, but you have the Bukulu. These ancestral spirits that transcended into the stars. These transcended souls are part of the Kalunga, meaning that which is complete within itself. When we speak of Bakulu, we speak of the connection to the world and the universe. When we call the Bakulu ancestors in ceremony, they partake of our offerings as living entities. They recognize our struggle and work with us to achieve balance and promote healing in ourselves, our families, and our communities and the world. And so I like to call them star ancestors, the ones who have did the work and have ascended uh, in a greater light. They're almost like angels. They're almost like angels. They're so bright. I like to call them star ancestors that have did a lot of work, but this goes even further because they can uh elevate to an angelic deity status. So they're always elevating. So it's good to work with these ancestors if you need to do healing. Then you have another set of ancestors. See, this goes deep when you really start to look at our ancestors. I'm not gonna even go to this one because I don't even understand this one. But you go to the Nomo, and you'll see the Nomo in the doggone tribe, and they are said to come from the Sirius star. The Nomo is a collective name for the great culture hero founder of civilization who came from the Sirius system to set up the Earth Nomo. Now you'll see that Sirius is connected with the matriarch culture. It is said that the matriarchs came from the star Sirius. So, and these were the women who were able to have children through parthenogenesis. This was the first ancestors that come from this star. You have these star ancestors, and you have some that were never incarnated here as well. Okay, that's when you go into the nomos and you really get into biology and you knowing more about who you are as a woman on Mother Earth. So the nomos, and I talked about that a little bit on this channel. If you're interested in looking at some, I can't remember which video it is, so I can't advise you to what video it was. I can't advise you, but I know it's here on this channel where I talked about that. And so you want to know about those nomos too. Again, you have those star ancestors. Some people, I don't like calling them aliens, um, but they are the first ancestors. And again, these can be traced back to the first mother. A lot of those artifacts can be first when you see around the nomos, they talk about the nomos, you're gonna see a lot of artifacts looking like the first mother. Okay. And then later on patriarchs went on to take that on with the fish and all that stuff. They had these fish hats on. You have the Pope copying that style that first originated with our ancient mothers. And then you have the fairies. Uh, and the pygmies are said to come from the fairies. You have some ancestors are said to come from these elementals. And when you look at fairies, you're looking at earth energies, you look at sylphs, you're looking at air energy, those air elements, you look at salamanders, you're looking at fire energy. Okay, you look at water energy, you're looking at undying energies, different type of fairies energies. So it is said that some of us descended from fairies as well. And these are just the elements within our environment. Again, these are our ancestors as well. And you look at some people, they do remind you of fairies. They do remind you, and I can say it myself because a lot of people in my family, especially my mom, none of us are over 5'5". We're all short. I have my sister's 4'9". I have a daughter that's 4'8". We're all really short. And to me, I'm like, oh, I bet we descended from some little fairies because we don't we don't get that tall. So you'll see that. But it is said that the pygmies, if I'm not mistaken, that they came from some sort of fairy, some elemental spirits in nature. And so we have the Petros. Now, these are ancestral spirits. This is Voodoo. Petro are fiery, fiery spirits. They can be volatile. They are very powerful. These are the spirits that were used during Haiti to get a fight for their freedom. So I don't advise working with petro spirits if you are not a seasoned practitioner. These are powerful, volatile spirits. And if you don't have the experience in working with them, you don't have the temperament in working with this can be out of control. Okay. So I won't recommend them, but you can work with the cool side of these spirits, and they are called Radas. I don't know why she didn't mention these in this book, but these are Rada spirits that you can work with, are the cool side of Petros. They're very safe to work with. And you can easily look up the Radas. Okay, they're called Radas. You have the Petro spirits and you have the Rada spirits in Hulu and Voodoo, and they are very easy to work with. And you'll find yourself in Hoodoo probably running into a lot of working with Voodoo spirits. Uh, I've seen Hoodoo run into Voodoo. Depending on, again, because this is the type of conjure work, you are dealing with spirits, you are dealing with energies, whatever way you want to look at it, that's what you're dealing with. So you're going to run, some of these will run together because it's ancestral. That's why I don't see how anyone could mess with it, because it is ancestral. Now we want to talk about the archetypes, because you'll find yourself saying, okay, where am I on my path? Some of us want to know, what path are we on? And so you're the hero in your story, navigating your path. All of us are on an individual star path. Depending, again, you are a star, you are a zodiac, that's why we have these star symbols, you know. And you'll see them also come up, these archetypes will come up in readings. That's why it's very good to get you a reading too, depending what comes, because I have people that come in and I can kind of tell where they're navigating in and where they're balanced in, depending on which archetypes comes up in their reading. Okay, you have the ordinary world. This is where the background, where the hero is shown, setting the stage for the hero and the tone of the story, the opposition in stirring the hero's life, causing stress, leading him down a perceived unstable path. So this, again, when I'm looking at this, I'm looking at this reminds me of the Tower card as I would see it if that came up in the reading. And then you have the call to adventure. This is the catalyst that gets the story moving. The food card, the adventure, the explorer. You want to see what's going on. These messages bring a message that sets off a series of events, causing the hero to begin a journey. So you on this journey, the food journey, you're taking this path of enlightenment, where you're learning things. A refusal of the call. The hero feels the fear of unknown and tries to turn away from the adventure. Ultimately, another character, minor archetype, may express the uncertainty of the danger ahead. And this sounds like this may be, uh, to me, it might be what do you call the hangman? It might be the hangman. And then meeting with the mentor, I see that as the Hierophant. Uh, The hero commits to leaving the ordinary world, entering a new region of condition with unfamiliar rules, rebirth, death, and rebirth. That's what I see there. So you'll see there's many archetypes that you can embody. The test and allies and enemies. The hero is testing and source out allegiances through special world. The approach, the hero and the newfound allies prepare for major challenges in the special world. So which archetype are you embodying? So you'll see that come up in your tarot, in your readings as well. And these archetypes, there, each author, what I've seen here in the book that I'm looking at now, Ancestral Magic, her archetypes look a little different from the archetype in Badass Ancestors. And she kind of breaks it down Are you the sage and the crown? I also have tarot cards like that with the archetypes in it that talks about the different ancestors that you are connected with in these archetypes that makes it a lot easier. Well, are you the sage of the crown? Are you right? Are you a writer? Are you connected with ancestors that write or are enlightened? Are you in your older stage in life and you're becoming more enlightened? And then are you the warrior? Are you the one who's breaking the generational curses? Are you the one for fighting for the healing? You know, what are you? Are you the spiritual warrior? Then you have the mother, the queen. Are you a mother in this stage? Are you embodying that queen of swords, that no nonsense woman? Maybe you are a Libra. Maybe you are an Aquarius, you know. Maybe you are a Gemini. That could be one of the earth signs. Maybe you are, again, you could be a fire sign. Maybe it's the Queen of Wands. Maybe you're Aries, a Sagittarius, Leo. Maybe it's an earth sign, a Virgo, Taurus, Capricorn. Maybe it's a water sign, Pisces. Again, the cups, this is going to represent what you have going on and what you're embodying right now. And I do see these that come up in readings with a lot of people when I do ancestors reading. The same thing with the Father King. Which energy are you embodying? Is the Swords, the King of Swords, the King of Cups? Which energy are you embodying right now? It's going to tell how balanced you are. Then you have the Trickster. You know, you're just everywhere. You know, you're just breaking all the rules. You're breaking all the rules. You just haven't really chose anything. But it's very important that you hone down on something if you're in the archetype. And again, the explorer comes up again as the fool. You begin to gain enlightenment, you begin to gain knowledge. Then you have the rebel and the lover. Again, you'll see these archetypes come in up in your reading when you're getting the ancestors reading with your ancestors. I've seen them come up in people's readings and been able to give very accurate readings when it comes to the ancestor reading. But like I said, you have options when it comes to working with ancestors. You don't have to be limited to your family members. And I've provided a lot of insight and a lot of options for you here. And like I said, people tell you to erect the ancestors altar, but to do it in a healthy way, I wanted to provide you options here. And some people say, don't do that because you don't know if you erecting your altar and it's gonna be bad ancestors there, good ancestors there. I have just went through that with you. So you can do it safely if you choose to. Okay. I hope this video brought you some enlightenment. I hope it educated you and empowered you and gave you options in the way you want to move forward to honor your ancestors. Thank you for being here with me today. Light, love, namaste, ashe, loved one.